Our good friend Mr. Voris has done it again. In his latest video, which you will find a link for just below, he sucked a few bowling balls into his little vortex thingy that he might not have done had he been properly medicated. So I'm going to have a few words with Mr. Voris right now. First of all, Mr. Voris, are you aware that little bass riff that starts off each and every one of your screeds? That bass riff appears to have been lifted from the Seinfeld show. Have you ever heard of copyright infringement? Better yet, have you ever heard of thou shalt not steal? I know, those nasty little commandments. One always tends to jump right in front of the other one, so you can't see the rest of them. Anyway, I digress. In your latest video, you say that as long as this culture holds on to a contraceptive mentality. Wait a minute. This culture? Mr. Voris, this culture is America. You are aware there are other people living in America besides Catholics. Like almost 3 times as many? That's 3 times as many who don't believe that birth control means waiting until the old lady doesn't have any eggs in her fuzzy sock pocket. Every sperm might be sacred to Catholics, Mr. Voris, but the Protestants? They fling their spunk everywhere. Have you ever taken a black light into a hotel, Mr. Voris? Spunk is like everywhere. It's like a sperm bomb exploded. You can even find it on the remote controls. Ugh. Maybe they should have Catholic-only hotels. Perhaps with little statues of the Virgin Mary out front. And each room comes with up to 15 bunk beds for the kids. Anyway, Mr. Voris, you didn't just stop with your screaming lack of awareness of the demographics involved. Then there's your ignorance of the First Amendment. You know, the one that comes right before Amendment 2? Yes, the old freedom of and from religion sticky wick. Kinda hard to get around unless you want to start a war. Which brings up another point, Mr. Voris. I have surveyed all of your videos. I know, I needed a stiff drink afterwards. Anyway, I watched them all. And do you know how many videos I found with you ranting on about unjust war? Tell them how many, Bob. 0. That's right, 0. Guess how many I found where you were wagging your little pencil around about capital punishment? Tell Mr. Voris how many, Bob. 0. That's right, 0. Mr. Voris, you rant on incessantly about the sanctity of life, but it seems to be only about embryonic life. But you know, I gotta agree with you, Mr. Voris. It is much easier to beat up on women than it is to beat up on Dick Cheney and George Bush. Anyway, in your latest video, you seem to have some issues with the idea that sex is for pleasure. Now, I know this would require you to actually read church doctrine instead of making it up yourself, but if you actually read the Compendium of Social Doctrine of the Church, it's kind of obvious that your own church wants Catholics to enjoy sex. I mean, if sex was not supposed to be pleasurable for Catholics, there'd only be 15 of them left. But you know what? I think there's like 1 billion of them. Now, sex might not be pleasurable for you, Mr. Voris. And it's quite obvious it isn't for Mrs. Voris. But that's your problem, not the rest of us. Now, as for your assertion that God must be involved in sex, where? Oh my goodness, he's been watching? Well, you indicated that only married couples have God in the bedroom. Well, I have news for you, Mr. Voris. You see, in my life, I slept with a few. Well, okay, maybe more than a few women who I was not married to. I mean, eventually all of them at some point were going, oh God, oh God, oh God. And I can tell you that miracles occurred. But perhaps your biggest mistake in your latest video, Mr. Voris, you actually had the balls to blame Catholic leadership for abortion. You actually used the words complicit. And you put it in a video on the web where people could see it? Everyone could see it, even the Pope? Well, let me see now, Mr. Voris. You've stolen stuff from Jews. You've told everyone that they shouldn't seek pleasure from sex. And you just implicated the leadership of the Catholic Church for the deaths of millions of little babies? Oh boy. Well, Mr. Voris, I think we need to get you to the one place where you might be safe after saying all of these things. You and the Boston Diocese that props you up. Tell them what they've won, Bob. That's right, guys. You'll be spending the rest of your natural lives in the Republic of Iran. It's a benevolent dictatorship. You'll really like that. They show zero respect for Jews and those of other faiths. Perfect for you. And there's not a dang one of them that likes sex either. Well, it's been good knowing you, Mr. Voris, and you be sure to pick up a nice burqa for the wife on your way out of the country.